So lately, cruising around YouTube, enjoying some good content from my brothers, Modern Red Hemi, Racer X. Racer X posted a video that was how to make your RT as fast as a Scat Pack. Now, cruising through the comment section of this video, I noticed some comments like these. And I even saw my man, Modern Red Hemi, getting shredded in the comments for posting his experiences about modding his 5.7 and how he's run 11s all motor in his RT shaker, shake and bake, his Challenger. It made me realize that there is a lot of misconceptions or a lot of things that people don't know or don't realize about what the 5.7 is capable of. In this video, I thought I'd cover the topic, is it better to modify your 5.7 Challenger or Charger, or is it better to trade it in for a Scat Pack? All right, let's get into it. All right, guys, so as you know, the RT trim level comes with a 5.7 liter Hemi, 345 cubic inch, putting out 375 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. Meanwhile, the Scat Pack trim level, which is also like a one-up of the same RT trim level. It's kind of confusing, but bear with me. Comes with a 6.4 liter Hemi, 392 cubic inch, putting out 485 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque. All right, guys, so I'm gonna set this entire video up right now by completely stating the obvious. So this is supposed to satisfy a lot of comments that are gonna get fired in this video, most likely. If you have unlimited funds, like 90% of all YouTube comments seem to, and gas mileage is not your #1 concern when picking out your Challenger, you should skip over both of these models and go buy yourself a Hellcat, preferably with a manual transmission because they're freaking awesome. For the rest of us mere mortals, and your top priority in picking a Challenger is not gas mileage, then you should just go with the highest level of trim level that you can afford. That makes the most sense right off the bat. If you're coming at this with no car, you don't have a Challenger, you're looking at getting a Challenger, no brainer, right off the bat, get the best trim level that you can afford. The most performance that you can afford off the bat. That makes the most sense. That will save you the most money in the long run. You will be the happiest that way. So now that we've got those two scenarios cleared up and a whole bunch of comments already responded to, now what happens if you already have an RT Challenger or Charger with a 5.7 Hemi, but you want more performance out of it? Does it make more sense to sell your car or trade it in and buy a Scat Pack, or does it make more sense to modify it to get Scat Pack level performance? And what will it take to get you to Scat Pack level performance? What are the cost benefits of both? Well, we're gonna break that down today. Let's look at the first option, trading in your Challenger or Charger and getting a Scat Pack. Now I can only use my scenario, like my car, my current market as an example, because I wanna use some specific numbers. It's too hard for me to guess roughly what somebody would have paid somewhere and roughly what the used market is in Florida compared to up here in Canada, like 12, 13 hours away from there. So I have to use my market as an example, but I feel like it's still gonna be fairly relevant. I feel like even though the numbers are gonna be different, the cost difference and things like that are probably gonna be fairly similar across the board. Anyways, it makes the most sense for me to compare this way, so that's how we're gonna do this comparison. Okay, so if I wanted to trade my car in for a Scat Pack, I would have to sell it privately because that's the easiest way to make the most money on the sale. If you trade it into the dealership, they're not gonna give you nearly what you could sell it for privately, because then the dealership is gonna turn around and try to sell it for roughly what you would have sold it for privately. So if you trade a car into a dealership, you're automatically gonna be losing money. So I'm gonna take that option completely off the table. So selling my car privately right now, I could probably get maybe around 20 grand, roughly around 20 for it. Okay, so as you can see here, I've configured a new Scat Pack just to see what the price is and what the difference is going to be. So I didn't option this one right out, but I did add a manual transmission because they're awesome. And I did throw leather seats in because I'm not downgrading my seats. The seats in my Challenger are amazing. The leather seats are super stylish, so we're going to keep that. But other than that, I don't really have much for options on the car. And that came in at a cool 54 grand for that car. So now if you subtract the 20 grand or so that I figured I could get for my car selling it privately, that leaves us with 33,700 roughly if I were to order this car brand new and get that new Scat Pack. So I'd have a $33,000 lump sum that I have to pay. So if we figure out a monthly payment, that leaves us with about $400 a month for roughly 8 years. That's a lot of money. I mean, especially for me, because my car's been paid off for years and years. So 400 bucks a month for 8 years, that's a bit of a crazy payment. So now I know what a lot of guys are going to be saying. It's, hey man, why don't you look at a used car? So let's do that. Let's look at a used car. Okay, so just searching through the biggest network of dealerships database, the only 392 car that I could find used for sale was this one. It's a 2014 SRT 392 car, like the orange. It is on sale for 32 grand. So now if we take the $20,000 that I can roughly get for my car selling it privately, subtract that 32 grand, we're left with $12,000. So now a $12,000 difference between the two cars. Let's say we want to take that out over payments because it's been a crap year and the economy completely sucks right now. So we don't have $12,000 saved up just floating around just because. So because it's an older vehicle and most banks will not let you finance an older vehicle longer than 5 years just because it makes no sense for them, because at the end of the term, the car is literally not really worth anything on an older vehicle. 5-year term for about 12 grand is going to be about 250 bucks a month. Now this comes at it from my scenario where my car has been paid off, so I owe nothing on my car. Now what happens if you are still making payments on your RT? Well, chances are if you go to sell it, you're not going to sell it for what you have left owing on your loan, unless it's like maybe right near the very back end of the loan, and even still it's not likely unless you were making some extra payments along the way just to try to pay down the principal, which is a smart thing to do, by the way. Not telling anybody how to live, just saying interest sucks, man. So now if you sell your car, but you won't get as much for it as you still have left owing on your loan, you're going to drag that negative equity into your new car loan. Now, depreciation, everybody knows that as soon as you drive a car off a dealer lot, you lose money on it. You can't turn around and sell it for what you bought it for generally. It just generally doesn't work that way. So usually you're probably going to lose between 3 and 5 grand right away. Like your value is going to be 3 to 5 grand right off the hop. So you can take that and add that onto the price of that 392. So now your 12 grand suddenly becomes 17 grand, or your 33, 34 grand for the brand new one suddenly comes around 38, almost $39,000. It all adds up. It's all extra. I mean, not only that, I mean, if you think about it, $5,000 worth of mods, that's tempting too. But anyways, those are the numbers for trading in. If I were to trade in my car right now for the only used Scat Pack available, or if I went and got a new Scat Pack, and that's what we'd be looking at for numbers. Now let's look at the other side of this. If you're looking at just increasing the performance of your 5.7 RT to roughly Scat Pack performance levels, and I say roughly Scat Pack performance levels not because I'm picking on Scat Packs or necessarily because they're the next one up in the pecking order. It's just that whenever you see any kind of automotive journalists, any review channels reviewing a Scat Pack after they've reviewed a Hellcat, every single one of them always says that the Scat Pack is probably the ideal performance level for these cars. They all say that it's about the sweet spot for performance. Now, if that is the case, then why not try to get your 5.7 into that performance level so you're super happy with it and there's not really any need to look at anything else, unless down the road your budget becomes crazy and you just want to go wild and get yourself a Hellcat and get yourself a smaller pulley and all that and crank it up to 1,000 horsepower and blow it up at the track, that's a different story. But if you're just looking for that sweet spot in performance, it makes it really tempting to just punch up your 5.7 so that it's running about what a 6.4 liter Hemi would. Okay, so I'm going to preface this entire thing by saying I'm only going to be recommending modifications that are going to get you pretty substantial horsepower gains. I'm not going to be recommending a cold air intake. I'm not going to be recommending a Scatpack exhaust, because there's no reason for you to go out and spend $2,000 on a Scatpack exhaust and a cold air intake and then head out to the track and see pretty much no difference in your performance and still getting blown out by the Scat Packs and the Camaro SS's and the 5-liter Mustangs and think, man, I just blew $2,000 and it didn't do anything. It's really not worth upgrading performance on my 5.7. Mods suck. Okay, so the first mod that I'm going to recommend to a totally stock car is a set of long tube headers. This cost me about $1,700, and you will need a tune to properly realize the gains from this. Otherwise, it's going to set off your knock sensors and it's going to retard the timing, completely negating any power that you would have gained. But really, all in all, at the end, you can expect about 45 to 50 or so rear wheel horsepower from one mod alone. And so now when I got my car dyno tuned with this setup, with the headers being the only modification that I had to my car, as in going into factory Scatpack exhaust, I put down 374 rear wheel horsepower for a standard dyno correction factor on a DynoJet dyno. So that factors to about a 425 horsepower or so to the crank with one modification. Now, if you're thinking about doing this mod to your 5.7, but you kind of wanted a little bit of help with it, check the video down below. I'll leave a link for my installation video, which, although isn't an instructional video, is definitely a rough guide that should be able to help you out with your install. Next up on the list, if your car is an automatic, which if it's a Charger, for sure it is, and most of the 5.7 Challengers, most of them are automatics. Man, guys, you gotta save those manuals. Anyways, if your car was an automatic and it came with those really crappy 262 gears in the rear end, get rid of those. Chuck them out of there. Spend $700 and get yourself a 309 limited slip rear diff. That is going to increase your acceleration greatly, although it's not going to increase your horsepower per se. Your acceleration is going to be much, much better, especially out of the hole. And that limited slip is going to help you get traction, especially with the extra power mods that we're doing. You're going to need it. Of course, if you have a manual transmission like me, you can just skip this mod altogether because your car came with the 391 gears in the back and already has a limited slip. The next mod I'm going to recommend is definitely a little more time intensive. It's definitely a bigger mod per se, but it's going to have you running neck and neck with our 392 counterparts, and that is a cam upgrade. So now I'm going to recommend the HRT Stage 2 cam. That's what I threw in my car, and right off the bat after throwing the cam in, we pulled 402 wheel horsepower and 403 pound-feet of torque. And that was seeing a restriction in our dyno graph. I'm still trying to work that out, but there's definitely more horsepower in this combination. If all you do with your car as far as racing is just running with your buddies from a roll on the highway, roll racing and stuff like that around town, if that's all you do, you never hit up a drag strip, you never really race from a dig around town, you can stop right now. That's all you need for mods, because you will be running neck and neck, absolutely dead even with that 392. Yeah. bought this package for 1,300 American. This package came with push rods, it came with the keepers, it came with the valve seats, new valve springs, the cam, obviously, a phase limiter, which I am now swapping to a phase lock. Everything you need aside from gaskets to install this in your car. If you have an automatic, you're definitely going to want to get rid of the MDS lifters. So lifter replacement is going to have to be an additional cost, but even still, I think all in, I was at about $1,700 or $1,800 for this mod. Oh. Guys, that kick in the pants and the power band, violent. It's the only way you can describe it. It's violent. I mentioned that I put in the HRT Stage 2 cam. That's not the only cam that guys go with that give you good power for your 5.7. Now, if you look at my good friend, Mr. Modern Red Hemi, check his channel out. Man, his car is super quick. Anyways, he's running a 270 cam, which is actually the cam that was offered in the Scat Pack Stage 2. So there's that as an option that was out and available before the HRT series came out. He's seeing good power gains with that. He's at about 400, 402, 405 or so rear wheel horsepower with his as well. So good power with the 270. A lot of guys seem to like the 6.4, the factory 6.4 cam in their 5.7. Now the good thing about that cam is it's unbelievably cheap because it is a factory cam. So if you're looking to add some extra power, you can throw that cam in there for a fraction of the price of an HRT Stage 2 cam kit. A lot of guys are making pretty good power with that 6.4 cam. I don't think the ceiling is quite as high as the HRT Stage 2 cam. I think the potential to make more power is there for the HRT Stage 2, but if you're on a budget and you're looking for more power and kind of like a less complicated way of doing stuff, because you won't need a phase limiter or anything like that with a 6.4 cam, it's definitely a solid option and a cheap option to get some decent power out of your 5.7. Now, if you race a lot from a dig or head out to the drag strip a lot, the 6.4 chances are will probably still have a little bit of an advantage down low thanks to that intake that they have. The long runner is going to be engaged through most of the run until they hit about 4,800 RPM, where it switches to the short runner for more horsepower up top. That gives them a lot more down low grunt. And if you look at a few videos that have been posted by guys who have dynoed this manifold versus their 5.7 liter manifold, the difference really isn't in power. Like, you won't see a higher power number from the 6.4 intake, but you will see a lot more torque through the mid-range and through the meat of that power curve where that long runner is engaged down low. So if you are going to be racing from a dig, you might want to add a 6.4 liter intake manifold swap in your mod list. That's going to cost you probably about $700 or so for the manifold and parts. Of course, you're going to be getting it used most likely, and add that extra power down low, which is going to have you right there with Scat Packs from a dig. Now, we can confirm this because there are a lot of videos out there with guys who are beating Scat Packs with this configuration. If you look at even RT Life's channel, when he first runs a 6.4 liter, Modern Red Hemi was beating a lot of 6.4 guys at the track when he was all motor before he put his blower on. So there's a lot of races out there to show that yes, it absolutely can be done with these modifications. Now, with that 6.4 manifold installed on your car, that's going to be a grand total of about $4,100 for a manual and $4,800 spent for an automatic when you include those gears that we threw in with that car. Now, for that mod list, not only are you going to have a 5.7 liter Hemi that sounds mean, it's going to perform awesome as well. And if you want to check out another channel that's got a similar setup to what I'm recommending as far as cam intake and long tube headers, check out my buddy Donnie RT's channel. He's got the same cam as me. Similar setup, maybe a few more mods to go on there. He's getting great numbers out of his cam too. definitely worth it to check it out. But there's a lot of guys that are making a lot of power really reliably with just a couple upgrades to their 5.7s. So there you guys have it. I just wanted to show you guys that you could very reliably make Scat Pack power out of your 5.7 with just a few mods, just to show you guys that it can be done. Judging by those couple comments that I showed you earlier, there's a lot of people that really don't believe in the 5.7. So we're here to show them. Having said that, does that make it the right move for everybody? Definitely not. Absolutely not. Now, if you are a type of person that warranty is vitally important to you, then obviously doing any kind of modifications at all is probably going to be out of the question. You're probably going to have to run it stock until you got it paid off. Or maybe you're the type of person that gets a new car every couple of years, doesn't really stick with anything, tries out a lot of different vehicles. If that's the case, there's really no point in modifying a vehicle. If you're just going to sell it anyways, you know that your resale value is going to be the highest for a stock vehicle. Either way you go, guys, I just wanted to put the options out there with some numbers to them. In my scenario, it might be similar, it might be a little bit different depending on what your guys' used market is like down there. But just wanted to give some perspective on options there are available to get some serious performance and power out of your 5.7 and whether or not it's worth it to trade to a Scat Pack. Really, there's no wrong answer here. It just depends on what circumstance that you find yourself under. Scat Packs are awesome. Really fast 5.7s are also awesome. So, I mean, it's a win-win, really, if you look at it. Anyways, guys, that's going to be about it for this video. If you guys have any comments or questions or just want to start a conversation about maybe your perspective or things that you found while modifying your car, anything like that, just leave a comment down below and we'll just have a conversation. It's always great to talk fellow Mopar guys about Mopar stuff. Anyways, guys, we will catch you later. Peace.